Meeting will come to order. Ms. Gore, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Benjamin?
Present.
Ms. Fletcher?
Present.
Ms. Williams?
Present.
Dr. Vial?
Present.
Mr. Lamar?
Present.
Let me ask Ms. Gore if you'll lead us in the pledges of allegiance, and we'll have a moment of silence.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Gore, do we have any citizens' comments? Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the June 25th, 2019 agenda?
Motion. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the June 25th, 2019 agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, the motion's carried. All right, let's move on to reports. I just have one quick one, and I just talked to some of the board members about this, about our board member self-evaluation, which you know is due this time of year. So I want to remind you that this year we're using Tennessee School Board Association Board Evaluation Service, and please be sure to submit your form online. TSBA will be tabulating our results for us. Yay, yay, yay. And this is a free service. It at one time was not a free service, so at this time with our membership, it is a free service for us. So I'm really grateful to Tennessee School Board Association for that. If you need the link to complete the online survey, please just let me know. It took me less than 10 minutes, so it moves quickly, and I think you'll enjoy it more than the other one because it has new questions. So that's kind of a nice thing. So that concludes my report. Superintendent's report, Ms. Mason?
Thank you, Ms. Williams. First of all, I want to have everybody join me and wish Mr. Mayo a happy birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday!
A couple things I have. First of all, I want to let you know it's been a busy summer so far. Our academics and accountability department is, if you drive by here about every day, you'll see the parking lot full. They've scheduled a full slate of professional development for the summer for our teachers for the flex days. Hearing very positive comments. So if you're ever driving by and see a bunch of cars, come on in and maybe sit down and join and see what the fun things that that the teachers are learning this summer. I want to keep you also up to date on our EBP, our Education Business Partnership, where we are with that. We had a meeting, I guess it was, what is today? This week, I think, Monday, yeah, on Monday. And we are beginning to move forward with a capital campaign. We are in the process now of formally writing out a narrative describing what the scope of that work will look like, how many kids will be involved, what programs are there, a variety of things that we'll be including in that. But this will fit in with our engineering academy, adding a medical machining technology program that we do not have. And this will be in partnership with Southwest. You know, I've been talking about the partnership with Southwest. We have gotten some concrete information on them, on machines that they will be moving from their campus to our campus. Well, actually, we will be moving. It'll be about $12,000 to do that, and that would be part of this capital campaign that would pay for that. But in total, it's about $150,000 worth of machines. And these will be dual enrollment courses with Southwest. They will be providing adjunct professors for us as well. But with these programs and these machines, we're going to have to do quite a bit of construction, going in, changing rooms, putting rooms, making 2 rooms into one, putting exterior doors, because these machines are very big. These are the machines that if you go to Microport and write, that's what you'd be seeing on their floor. And so we're really excited about this partnership. Also, we're looking at, as we're creating that new program, also adding and completing out some of our existing programs, whether it be some of our STEM, our welding, our mechatronics, everything that fits within that Academy of Engineering and Innovation. And so what we're looking at is that the estimate for the construction work, we're estimating it'd be about $500,000, looking at additional equipment around $300,000. Mr. Goforth met with Haas, which is the company for the machines, to draw out a plan and see exactly what machines we would have left to purchase. And then looking at also hiring somebody that would manage this program over time. And in our meeting on Monday, Mr. Pickler suggested that that personnel issue, we embed in that, and then we look at funding that for 10 years. And so we're looking at a total, if you're looking at that position being funded for 10 years and the other things that I mentioned, right now we're looking at starting a capital campaign, the foundation, of $2 million. And so we will meet again on July 11th. We are working on taking the pieces that will be necessary and putting it in that narrative. Once we get that narrative completed, I will share that with the board. But there will be some important pieces that we'll need to talk about that will be underneath your purview as the board, as far as enticements for the foundation when they go out to try to get sponsors for this, such as naming rights. And I don't know, Ms. Beekman, you may want to jump in here on what, if that has to be in policy and what that would look like. And we're not talking about naming schools or campuses, or policy prohibits that. But, for example, the new machining program that we're looking, it could be Microport machining program, and the welding could be something else. And then that they would donate money and be a sponsor of that at the same time and have naming rights. So I would be interested to see what the thoughts of the board members are in allowing that or not, and if, Ms. Beekman, if we would need a policy to allow that or what that would look like.
We would, but there are also other suggestions that Mr. Pickler, for example, had in his experience in working with the Coggerville Foundation and the Germantown Foundation, that he'd like to, I think, share out to you guys through the superintendent to get your feedback about some other, ways that you might want to acknowledge, if you will, people's donations.
Yeah.
So is that more like, if you go to a College of Engineering at a campus and it's the Benjamin College of Engineering?
That's right.
Would it be like the Wright Medical, whatever classroom or whatever? Is that kind of what we're thinking?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
all right,
yes, it
good.
could be programs, it could be spaces.
Yeah, okay.
It could be, like the welding lab, could be so-and-so's welding lab,
Yeah.
or like I said, it could be I think the big one would be, like $500,000 would be the program of the engineering and innovation,
Yeah.
or something of that. And that's something that we would just have to look at, the foundation will look at and kind of see what those options are, and then obviously bring before you all before we put that out there.
It could
For those
be even
potential
something
donors.
as small as like what you might do in a church, like
Yeah.
to give put a plaque on a machine for somebody who
Right.
passed away,
Right.
Yeah.
say, I gave this on behalf of my
Yeah.
grandmother.
Yeah,
or-
it could be
Yeah,
as
that's
little
good.
or as big as what you're thinking, and so
Yeah, I
we'll be
like that.
compiling some of those suggestions, and then, but ultimately, those are decisions of anything naming rights of any parts of our building would have to be approved by the board.
Right, good, thanks.
So does anybody have any questions about that, or where we are in that part?
All right now.
Okay, so we're really excited about that. I do want to, Mr. Mayo, give a brief report on where we are with staffing. It's his busy time and his department, and I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, we were in perfect shape until about 1 o'clock this afternoon. We had a resignation. So we have now one teaching vacancy open, and we have a couple of part-time nutrition techs open at Arlington High and one nutrition tech at Donaldson Elementary. And all of these were resignations that happened at the end of the school year that we've been holding. And we've just now posted those positions, and I think those should be probably filled by the end of this week. We filled one today at Arlington Elementary. We have a teacher assistant at Donaldson, but overall, we only have like 6 positions open, and only one of those is a teaching position. So we're in really good shape. Overall, we will have had about 50 fills. That's counting teaching, classified, central office, and all 4 schools. And that's about typical, normal. That includes, new positions, replacement positions, retirements, resignations, those types of things. So we're in great shape. Hopefully that will continue throughout the summer. We have submitted our differentiated pay plan, which is due, I think, July 1st, June 30th, somewhere around there. But we've submitted that, and we'll just wait till the superintendent gets an approval on that, hopefully. And the other big news in HR is we are going to be developing a plan to have all of our employees who are existing employees background check. That's a new law that's been passed, that we have to do that every 5 years, and we're at that 5-year mark. We had heard there was going to be an extension of that for 6 years, but that did not pass. It was supposed to coincide with teacher licensure renewal, but that did not pass. So this fall, we will take the first round of our employees who have been here since the district started, who many have never had a background check. So we hope that turns out really well, including me and Ms. Mason and Ms. Speakman.
Ms. Speakman had one, I came late.
Okay, that's right, yeah. So anyway, we'll be looking at that, and obviously that group will be our largest group. And then from there forward, we will do that every year with employees, so that we're in that every 5-year compliance for background checks. So we have a system set up already. We have our approval. We have our ORI number. It's just a matter of getting that organized and planning the timing for that. And the timing right now will probably be once teachers and employees are all back. They basically will go out for their background check to one of the sites that provides that. And we did budget money for the district to cover that. Initially, employees pay for that when they come as a new employee to the district. They pay for that. But as an existing employee and to be in compliance with this, we have budgeted for that. Obviously, every 5 years, that's going to be a bigger budget item. And then as the other 4 years, it'll be just whoever we hired new that year. But obviously, our biggest bulk was the first year.
Gotta love an unfunded mandate, right?
Yes, exactly.
Does that include the board? Is the board have a background check?
You haven't been required to have that in the past, so we're not including you in that. If you'd like to have one, we can hook you up.
That'd be okay with me.
What all do we do in background checks? Is there something out there that I don't want to take a bunch of time with that covers in what all we look for in background checks?
It's a TBI
Oh,
and
okay.
FBI. It's fed through both those agencies.
Okay.
And then we get a report back on every employee that there's no indication of any
Criminal activity,
concern.
sexual activity,
Right,
that kind of
right,
stuff? Okay,
right.
yeah.
And if there is an indication, then obviously we contact the employee and try to find out the severity, and employee would then have to provide a disposition of how that charge or whatever the hit was disposed of.
Yeah.
And typically it's not a big deal. It's generally when we see young people, it results from a DUI or a fraternity party or something like that in college, and then we're able to work through that with most employees.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
all right, that concludes the information that I have to share.
And then the last thing I want to share with the board, I've spent the majority of the day today in Lexington with our new commissioner. What the goal of that meeting is, she started rolling out pieces. She's been taking information from teachers and parents and students and stakeholders, gathering survey information, and they've pieced that together, and they are she highlighted those pieces that she heard the most about as she is developing the state's new strategic plan, which will form our work over the next several years. And so we went through a very, very rough draft on that, was able to give some additional feedback today to her. She went to all 3 regions. We were the last region. Her goal is to take this, and then she has to have something to the governor by August 1st for him, but that will really shape what our work's gonna be, what education's gonna look like in Tennessee for the next, at least, under this new governor. And so I wanted to keep you all up to date on that. Has been a great,
May I ask,
yeah, sure.
Was she was taking feedback from you guys, or, okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She has sent out multiple times to us emails for surveys, and then today, after she went through the big pieces, that will not all be included, because she said if all that was included, that would be in her words, the billions instead of the M's, and she said it needs to be in the M's. But she asked on ours, what are most important to us, and so we actually sat down with a staff member and went through, and they took notes and was gonna take that back and compare it to East and Middle speed superintendents as well.
I mean, that's
So,
encouraging.
Very pleased with
Yeah,
that.
good. Yeah, very good.
Also, Matt, there has been a large turnover at the Department of Education, the largest since in the 6 years that I've been doing this. And she's restructuring the whole Department of Education to mimic school district departments, so that it would make it easier for personnel at schools to know, for example, there's an academics department, that's K-12 academics, I put SPED and everything like we would see, there's an operations department, there's an accountability department, so that, it makes sense, and then, of course, then underneath that'll be layered, but she's doing that for the ease of districts to be able to know who to go to and have common people to go to instead of having to go to 3 people when you're in one department. So trying to streamline that process, but with that has come a large turnover as well. But just wanted to keep you up to date on where we are. We hopefully should be seeing what that strategic plan is, and then with that, what is rolled out as a result of that strategic plan, probably sometime in mid-August. But that
Sounds
will,
promising, doesn't it?
yeah,
At this
it's
point.
just, this is the 3rd time I've spent a good deal of time with her, and she, the work that she is, the information that she's gathering from stakeholders is a lot more than the previous commissioners under my tenure. And so we'll see how it's put together and then how it's implemented. And
Whether
so-
she chooses to ignore it or not.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. But, hey, she's,
That's a better
I got her
start,
phone
right?
number, she said,
Yeah.
Tammy, call me if you need anything, and.
That's awesome.
And so she's gonna be very accessible, so we'll see, but, so far, very promising, but the strategic plan is, getting close. There was a lot of conversation today about, BEP, and looking at overhauling that, but, as she consistently tells us, and as we always know, that sounds good, but there's always winners and losers in that.
Yeah.
And so when that's being overhauled, there's always winners and losers. There's a lot of talk about how to give additional assistance to rural systems. And then what would that look like? So, but BP's been an ongoing conversation. But that's where we are with the new administration, and should see some concrete, work, I would say within the next month and a half, in the direction that we'll be going. And with that, that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Ms. Mason. General Counsel report, Ms. Speakman?
Promise this will be fast, but the public chapters which memorialize the bills or make them into laws have finally been published. And so Glenda and I have been very busy trying to extract those and decide, who in our staff needs to have that information so that we can make the requisite changes from those bills. But as it relates to you guys, I was just going to tell you to bring your lunch or dinner on in August, because it will be then that I plan to bring the needed changes in the policies that were brought on by the General Assembly's passage of these new public chapters. And then secondly, of course, is the State Board of Education met in April, and then they had more changes that will also drive some changes to policy. So I just wanted to take a minute to let you know that, because I know that you wonder sometimes, why are we bringing these policies, or why are we making these changes? And so I just wanted to kind of lay out for you what that timeline is and why they come the way they come. I guess that's it, unless anybody has any questions for me.
Thank you, Ms. Speakman. We appreciate yours and Glenda's hard work on that. Ms. Roberts, financial report?
The April 2019 financial report, general fund had revenue of $38.1 million and expenditures of $30.9 million. The nutrition fund had revenues of $1,066,927 and expenditures of $887,049. Federal and discretionary grants funds, revenues $1,742,951 and expenses of $2,313,942. CIP fund, revenues $612,530, expenditures $2,003,384, and that's for the middle school roofing and middle school gym projects. With the interlocal health benefits plan asset trust report, let me preface this. This is the March and April reports that are included. In December 2018, all the members of the trust pre-funded the trust. And so from April, May, and June, you'll see a vast difference in the revenues, and you'll also see some negative revenues in the reports as the members are being reimbursed if there were any overpayments in their in the pre-fund. So for March 2019, there was year-to-date revenues of $38.7 million, year-to-date expenses of $30.4 million, beginning balance at the beginning of the year, $1.8 million, with the ending balance in March of $10.1 million. For the April 2019 report, there was year-to-date expenses of $38.4, which is a decline from March due to some refunds, and year-to-date expenses of $34.4 million, with the beginning of year balance $1.8 million and an ending balance of $5.8 million. That concludes the financial reports.
I have one question. I know it's exceedingly large on the general fund revenue. The percentage is 1,430%. What? That's exceedingly large. Could you explain why it's 1,430%? It's exceedingly large. It's in other local revenue.
Oh, that percentage is because there was a budget of $2,000 for the revenue, but the actual year-to-date was $28,000. So it exceeded the budgeted. That's what that percentage represents.
I got you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts.
You're welcome.
We'll move on to the consent agenda. I'm pulling item 7B, policy 5.310, vacation and holidays, from the consent agenda for discussion. And we will make that item 9E under business and recommended action items. 9E.
Just a second to move it, okay?
Absolutely. That's why I was looking at you. Oh, I forgot the TLN report, Ms. Dr. Biox. Are you okay?
Yeah, it's good. Garrett, I will say, while we're in a bit of a pause, Garrett Nicely has been knocking it out of the park as far as all of that legislative stuff. He's doing a great job keeping us updated. And if you guys aren't getting those emails, just let me know and we can get that to you. But
I've been very impressed with him.
He is really
Yeah.
doing a very good job.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah,
and
he
I like
has.
the summary. They haven't done those before, so he's really, TSBA as a whole, I'll plug all of them. They really have had a little bit of turnover, and they're getting some young people in there that have these great ideas, and they're really doing a lot of cool stuff. And I'll say, in addition, to give her another minute, that we had our quarterly meeting and did mission, vision, and strategic plan. I'm not gonna waste any time here with us, but if you guys are interested in some of the cool stuff that we're looking at for this year, just let me know, and I'll be happy to share. So,
Thank you, Dr. Viox.
ma'am.
Is there a motion to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda?
I'm so moved.
A second?
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the motion's carried. Superintendent Mason, will you lead us through our budget items and our recommended action items?
Yes, I'll have Ms. Roberts do the budget amendments, 8A.
For this month's budget amendments, this will be the final one for this fiscal year. These are our normal monthly budget transfers between line items, as well as reconciling our federal grants with what is approved by the state.
And And with that is my recommendation to approve Resolution 2019-12.
All right, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Benjamin, seconded by Ms. Fletcher. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. All right, the ayes have it, the motion's carried. All right, we're going to move on to the recommended action items. I guess we're ready for our election. All right. We're ready for election of chairman. Nominations are now in order for the office of chairman. I nominate Hugh Lamar for the office of chairman.
I second it.
Hugh Lamar is nominated. Are there further nominations for the office of chairman? If not, without objection, nominations are closed. Nominations being closed, members will now vote for the office of chairman. Ms. Gore, will you call the roll?
Mr. Benjamin?
Do I say yes? What's my response here?
You can
Are we
say,
voting?
you can say Mr. Lamar.
Oh, Mr. Lamar. Thumbs up. Aye, aye.
Mr. Lamar.
Ms. Williams?
Mr. Lamar.
Dr. Vial?
Mr. Lamar?
Mr. Lamar. Don't know what to say.
Ms. Gore, will you report the results to the board, please?
All answers were Mr. Hugh Lamar.
All right, it's unanimous. Mr. Hugh Lamar is elected chairman. Congratulations. Nominations are now in order for the office of vice chairman.
Madam Chair, I'd like to nominate Scott Benjamin.
Thank you. Mr. Scott Benjamin has been nominated. Are there further nominations for the office of vice chair? If not, without objection, nominations are closed. Nominations being closed, members will now vote for the office of vice chairman. Ms. Gore, will you call the roll? I'm sorry, a second? We don't need a second. We don't, it really, well,
Second.
thank you, thank you. Now, in all my Robert's Rules of Order, it says no second is necessary, but we will second it. So, Mr. Lamar, you did second, all right?
I did.
All right, will you call the roll, please?
I will. Mr. Benjamin?
A hearty yes.
Ms. Fletcher?
Mr. Benjamin.
Ms. Williams?
Mr. Benjamin?
Dr. Vial?
Mr. Benjamin?
Mr. Lamar?
Mr. Benjamin.
All right, Ms. Gore, will you report the results to the board? This is very difficult, I know.
Unanimous for Mr. Scott Benjamin.
Thank you. All right, nominations are now in order for the office of TLN representative.
I nominate Dr. Viox.
Killing me here.
Dr. Dale Viox has been nominated. Are there further nominations for the office of TLN representative? Oh, we do need a second.
Oh, second.
Ms.
I'll second this.
Speakman said. All right. If not, without objection, nominations are closed. Nominations being closed, members will now vote for the office of TLN representative.
Mr. Viox. Mr. Viox.
Dr. Viox.
Ms. Williams?
Dr. Viox.
Dr. Viox?
Me, I guess.
Dr. Viox.
Mr. Lamar? Okay.
Ms. Gore, will you report the vote to the board?
A unanimous decision for Dr. Viox.
Dr. Viox is elected TLN representative. Congratulations, one and all.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to the next item. Ms. Mason?
Yes, thank you. The next item you have before you is the motion to approve Resolution 2019-13. This is a resolution that includes a list of all, to dispose of all of our obsolete textbooks and instructional materials throughout the district. And so with that is my recommendation to approve Resolution 2019-13.
Okay, you've heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Mr. Lamar and seconded by Mr. Benjamin. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it and the motion's carried. And next item,
Next item on the agenda is item 9E, policy 5.310, vacation and holidays. I have prepared we're ready, Russell, a PowerPoint for this. Ms. Williams did let me know yesterday she was going to pull this off, so I do have some prepared for you. Each of you do have at your agenda a hard copy as well. And so what I thought I would do is to go through this with you and kind of show you the thought process and how we got to where we are, and then take any questions that you may have. So, okay, what do I point at? Oh, no. Go ahead. All right. So what I thought would be helpful for you first is to give you a history of the assistant principal salary schedule. And as you know, that when we became a district, we inherited all of the practices from Shelby County Schools, and each year we're kind of taking each one and making them our own. So, but for assistant principals, if you look prior to 2002, there were no assistant principals in Shelby County Schools. They were all, that position was called curriculum coordinators. Both, I know Ms. Fletcher and Ms. Williams is aware of this. Curriculum coordinators, you can see we had limited administrative authority. For example, I was a curriculum coordinator at Houston Middle. I could not put somebody in incident school suspension. I could not sign that form because I wasn't considered a true administrator because of that title, curriculum coordinator. We were, the curriculum coordinators were under teacher work pay calendars, and the salary for that was teacher salary plus a $2,500 stipend. In 2002, you'll see that curriculum coordinators converted to assistant principals with full administrative authority. Teacher work pay calendar continued, which means that continued working a teacher calendar. But that third bullet item, but the salary was changed to an administrative salary. And it started off with APs making $62,000. So you'll see that there wasn't a consistency in the salary was changed, but the calendar wasn't to be commensurate with an administrative position. That continued up until the time and after we became a district in 2014, the municipal school districts were formed. We continued to follow the same salary schedule and work pay calendars as previously followed in Shelby County. Okay, next slide. Then in the spring of 2018, last year, it was probably around February or March, our team began looking at salary equity amongst various positions. As I said earlier, as we've gone each year, we've looked at different practices that we inherited from Shelby County and are making them our own. During that process, we determined that there was a salary equity issue among principals and assistant principals compared to levels of responsibility and work pay calendars and salary schedules, and when we drilled down to those salaries on a daily basis in comparison. Throughout, from the spring of 2018 to the spring of 2019, our team studied that. We looked across the state. We looked at salary schedules from other districts, looked at salary schedules from central office staff, teachers, and made all those alignments. So then in the spring of 2019, we looked at what could we do to align those two positions between assistant principals and principals. And you'll see in the next slide what we did, what that actually looked like, or what we looked at in making the decision. So we developed 11-month administrative work pay calendar to avoid diminishing salaries of APs to bring equity to principals, because we had a couple choices when we knew that in some instances the assistant principals were making more per day than principals were. And so we had three different options. One, we could keep them on a 10.5-month calendar, but reduce their salary so that they would be equitable with the principal's salary. We could increase the principal's salary. That wouldn't be fiscally responsible, as our principals are already the highest paid in the state, or even with the highest paid in the state. Or we could keep them at the same salary, but put them on 11-month schedule. And that's what we elected to do and include in our budget that we brought before you. Once we made that decision, Mr. Mayo met with all the assistant principals across the district to review the calendar, vacation accrual process, and paid holidays. The 11-month AP salary schedule was presented to you all at the board work session, and then Mr. Mayo, if you recall, outlined or reviewed for you his conversations that he had when he went and met with the assistant principals. The budget was then, after that work session, the budget was then approved by the ACS board at the end of May. That included the 11-month AP salary schedule. And then that same budget was taken before the town in early June and approved at that point. So from that, we've been operating on that. And so with that, then, we determined that if assistant principals are gonna go in 11 months, we have a couple different options. We can either just predetermine what that 11 months is, meaning we're gonna go ahead and set what your schedules are for the 11 months. Or we can designate the majority of those and then give you vacation days so that you have some flexibility in your calendar. And so, but as we went through and looked at that, to give you all some insight on our research, if you look at this first slide, you'll see the elementary school AP principal comparison effective prior to 7/1/18. Now, what we did, this has been a 2-year process, so we went through also at the same time when we were looking at equity amongst pay schedules, we made a division between elementary, middle, and high school, both principals and assistant principals, because those duties look a lot different. And as middle school, we've been adding a lot of things to middle school. We made that, we broke apart elementary and middle school as two different groups instead of one group. And so, but we do not diminish anybody's salary. So one of our principals, we grandfathered in. And when our second principal came in on the new schedule, she's on a different schedule. We'll look at that next. But if we look at this first one, under this particular situation, if you look in the top right-hand corner, under the 10.5-month model for assistant principals, the elementary school APs are actually making more money per day than the principal is at that school. Under the 11-month model, the elementary principals make $50.49 more than the APs, which that's what makes it, that's more equitable. Obviously, the principal has a lot more authority, a lot more decision-making. If you look at the bar graphs before you, that first set in the dark blue, that's the annual salary, and you can see how those are relative to each other. The first one being assistant principals, the second one being principals. If you look at the middle, that's the daily rate on 10.5 months. You see how they're almost equal, and that shouldn't be. On an 11-month schedule, you can see that almost mirrors then what the salary is, which that's really what you want. You want your daily rate to mirror the annual salary in that division between assistant principal and principal. So that's the elementary school principal that was grandfathered. If we look at the second slide, this is our new elementary schedule, and you'll see underneath this, and I won't read each one of these unless you want me to, but it's that same scheme. You'll see the first one is the salaries, the annual salary. You see with the 11-month, it almost mirrors what that looks like on the daily. So the daily rate and the annual salary are aligned with each other. If you look at the 10.5 month, you see they're almost equal, which is not in line to the annual salary. Go to the next slide, which is your middle school. You see under the 11-month, we've got that alignment again that you don't have with the 10.5 months. You'll see for the middle school, under the 10.5 month model, the assistant principal makes $6.10 less than, or the AMS principal makes $6.10 more than APs per day. Under the 11-month, it's back at around that $60 a day mark a day, which as a school district and as a board, we want to make sure that our people that are in positions of responsibility have a higher rate of pay than those that don't have that decision-making authority. And if we go to the high school, you're going to see the same scenario as we've aligned this with, again, the annual salary for the high school AP, the annual salary for at the daily 11 months. You see how that's aligned together. Again, if you keep them on the 10.5 month at the same rate, you can see they're almost equitable with each other. Next slide. So then we looked at how does it compare to all the other municipal districts. What you see in green are the districts where their assistant principals are 11 months. What you see in yellow is 10.5 months. You will see all kinds of crazy scenarios in here, and a lot of it doesn't make any sense. What we've attempted to do when we've been looking at our salary schedules is to make sense, make it aligned, and make it equitable between groups. So what we now have with the budget that you all have passed this year is you'll look, now this is assistant principals, you'll see the elementary group, the middle group, and the high group, all 11 months. You'll see there's a difference between each of those. Then you'll see Bartlett, Carterville, Germantown, Lakeland. If you look at Carterville, all of their groups are 11 months, and they're all on the same scale. So their assistant principal at elementary makes the same as their assistant principal at high school. And if you look at their top step, both our middle and high school makes more than that. And our elementary is just about $1,500 off. And I would say that that's not a good schedule to have all of them on the same schedule, because the level of responsibility obviously is much different.
That's not fair.
Yeah, you see what I mean? Germantown, you'll see middle and high. There's one middle school assistant principal on 11 month, one high school assistant principal on 11 month. All the rest of them are in 10.5 months. Again, you can see how well our salaries match up. At Bartlett, it's really unique when you look at Bartlett. Their high school is 11 month, and you'll see the range there. Our high school ranges are higher, both 11 month. And if you notice their elementary and middle, when we received their information, they didn't give us their steps, they just gave us their range, what was their lowest and what was their highest. So you notice their elementary and middle APs are have the same range and work 10.5 months. Their high schools work 11 months, but you notice that there can be assistant principals working 10.5 months in elementary and middle and make more money than a high school 11 month, which I would tell you, I don't believe that's equitable. And so these are some of the things, and then when you look at Lakeland's 10.5 months, you can see that, where we are with that, and then Millington as well. So you can see that a lot of them, you don't see kind of rhyme or reason to where they are, but certainly by looking at this overall, you see that ours are paid more than most of them, or aligned with the highest of the others. Now, the difference between Bartlett's 11-month Carterville and Germantown's, the two assistant principals Germantown has, is that they determine what their 11-month calendar is going to be. The assistant principals don't get an option of choosing vacation and choosing what times they have off. What I'm proposing in the vacation policy is that we would treat them like true administrators, like we do our 12-month. We have vacation days, and then they can accrue those. They can accrue up to, how many did we say, Jeff? 18? 18 vacation days if it's at the same accrual rate as 12 months. And then 18 days, they would get to choose whether they want to use all of them in the summer, whether they want to use some at spring break, some at fall break. They would have that decision. If the board opts not to pass the vacation policy, then what I would do under my authority as the superintendent is I would just determine, like Carterville and Germantown has done in Bartlett, say these are the days that you'll be working in your 11-month contract. So with that, that concludes my report. Be happy to take any questions that you may have. I think you may want to discuss it amongst yourself.
Let's go ahead and get the motion on the floor first, if we could. You've heard the superintendent's recommendation.
Motion to approve?
Second?
All right, any discussion?
I would like to know why we only have basically 3 steps, 0, 1, 2, and the others have 4 or 5. Why do we not have more than 4 steps?
When we looked at that, we eliminated those because our steps were so much higher. Even if you look at our step 0, I mean, we could, you can have as many, the number of steps you have doesn't matter. What matters is the value behind those steps. And if you look at our top step, it is higher or in line with every top step. So that's what we look at. So, which means that we started ours out at a higher rate than the others did. And over the years, they've caught up, but as we continue to give raises, those steps continue to increase.
I'd like on step 4, where, like step 3, which would, we have 84 and they have 84, but then they have step 4, which allows for them to make more.
Well, that's just elementary. Look at your
Right,
middle and
right.
high. Look at our middle and high. Our middle
Well,
and
I
high is
can't
more.
really let's
And-
see, let me look over here.
Yeah, our middle and high is more.
Well, on step 2 in ours, it's 84, and over here it's 85, and then 87.
Which
On
one are you
4 and
looking at?
5.
All
I'm
of them are
looking at
different.
Germantown, yeah.
Yeah. So,
But see, it looks to me like if you had more steps, it'd give them a chance to have,
now, keep in mind, we could do that, but if we do that, we gotta raise principals too. And that's what we're trying to align the salaries of APs with principals. And when you look at overall, I mean, you can handpick different ones, but when you look at overall our schedule compared to the others, the only ones that you see that's really much lower are the elementary. But we have been very purposeful in looking at the duties, and the other municipals, they've just pretty much grouped elementary and middle together and not looked at specific duties. And so that's what we've tried to do. But remember, we're making our assistant principals relative to the principal salary, to our principal salary. So that's why, Barbara, that's why we've made those decisions. If you look, like, what district has 5 steps, one has 4, 3 of them have elementary and middle together, one has all elementary, middle, and high, see, they're all over the board on what they look like.
So, Madam Chair, I guess I'm confused, because we've talked about this, it seems like, a couple of times. What was your concern for pulling this off the consent agenda?
Well, basically, you know, here's my thing.
Okay.
Pre-merger of the Shelby County Schools, APs were on 11-month work pay calendar, and they were paid for those days they worked. After our merger, the APs were reduced to 10.5 months when we were after the merger. And then our people, like Ms. Mason said, you know, they stayed on that 10.5 months. Now we're making them 11 months, and my concern is that we're not paying those APs for the days worked. And I just know that in our strategic plan, we said we're going to maximize our employee capacity. And one of our objectives in that strategic plan was that we were going to create a culture of recognition and value among our ACS staff. And I believe that's what we have to do. And I did talk to Ms. Mason about, you know, talking to the assistant principals, and I do know that they are, I keep hearing from even other districts, as I said before, but I am concerned about how we are valuing our staff and making sure that we're retaining those good people that one day may be our principals in the future. So that's my concern. And to be honest with you, I'm having trouble sleeping at night because we're not paying these people the days they work. When they're moved to 11 months, the right thing to do is to make sure that we are paying them for those days. So that has been my concern. And also, I do think that we do need to form a committee or study and look at exactly what do we need to do, maybe for principal salary or assistant principal salary, or just to look at those and make sure that we're accomplishing what we need to do for our staff, and make sure that we're doing the right thing.
So, a follow-up, if you don't care. So, when was it that you presented this to the assistant principals? I don't remember at this point.
It was after spring, I think it was the week after spring break.
All right, and
In
so, I mean, you reported to us before, like, we had our individual budget meetings, and we had our budget work session, and then we passed our budget, and then the town passed our budget. But during that, I believe it was a work session, you told us that, like, you talked to the assistant principals and they didn't have any issues with this, or or there were issues?
I didn't get any feedback from the assistant principals. I think it was new information, obviously, so
Right.
they listened, and you know, I gave them copies of what the calendar might look like, the vacation policy, accrual, and explained to them what days they would have to use at their discretion at that point. And, you know, I did get the question, I think I beat them to the question. I told them their salary would remain the same.
Right.
But
Because one of the options was reducing the salary, which I think
Yeah.
wouldn't have been very
yeah,
popular.
we didn't discuss that with the
Okay.
assistant principals.
Yeah.
We just said, this is our plan.
Okay.
You'll stay at this salary. This will be your work pay calendar, and these will be how you will accrue vacation days, because all of our assistant principals, with the exception of one, are at the top rate of vacation accrual by our policy.
Okay.
But, I didn't really get any pushback, feedback, or,
Well, have you since?
Yeah, that was gonna be my question.
Since then?
I haven't.
None of them has come and
So,
talked to
I mean,
me.
has the board gotten any? Have you got, I mean,
Well, as I've told Ms. Mason, I have heard from other districts that there's some concern with our assistant principals, and of course, I think it has been discussed. I don't want to go into who told what,
Yeah.
at this
well,
point.
I'm just saying, I mean, I'm just curious as if somebody's come, like, if it's a legitimate employee concern, that's something we should certainly look at. That's all
And
I
I
was
think
trying
it
to figure.
is. I think it is.
Let me ask you this.
I will
on-
say, nobody has come to me, and I've
Right.
talked with the assistant principals and principals and said, if they have any concerns, come to me. Also, I want to make sure that the board understands this. The contract says for assistant principal 10.5 months. They don't work 10.5 months because they get all the teacher holidays off. So they get an extra 4 weeks off. So they're actually only working on a teacher contract 9.5 months. So this salary for middle school, 89,000, is for 9.5 months, because that teacher calendar has spring break off, fall break off, 2 weeks at Christmas. So when you take that off the 10.5 month, they're only working 9.5 months. So that's, and that's the big thing that when I've talked with principals, because obviously principals work during that time. And those are the times that they need their assistant principals with them. But when you're looking again at equity, because you can't look at the assistant principals by themselves. Because remember, this was brought up when we looked at them in comparison to the principals. The assistant principals cannot be making more money or that close to principals and it be equitable. And if you poll the state, you will see that our salaries are, even at 11 months, Ms. Williams stated that when they came over from Shelby County, they were 11 months. They were, but we gave them the same salary and reduced their time. We just put them back on 11 months. And so when you look at the money, when you drill that down per day, you cannot make a case that they're not being compensated fairly. You cannot make that case when you look at all the factors.
Well, I guess my
course I
concern
disagree.
is for our employees and our assistant principals and, I mean, all this data is good to show that we're competitive, but I guess I'm trying to find out if we've heard from our assistant principals, if they're vastly unhappy in their job or if they're unhappy with these changes. Like, that, to me, that's pertinent if our assistant principals are concerned.
I do want to share one other thing. Since this was passed by the board in the town, some of as we've made the transition, the assistant principals and principals have worked out, they've been given of that calendar 5 flex days, so that when the assistant principals have an option to go to professional development in June, then that will count toward their next year's contract. And at least, Jeff, at least 2 of them, maybe 3 of them, have already worked days toward their new contract. And that 4 of them have. So, which means they've already started that new contract. And, or the terms of that new contract, as was already approved by the board in the town. And so if a change is made at this point, then that means we'll have to go back and, that means that they're working off contract then.
And of
But-
course, principals could give them, credit for that, to give them a day off, or, we could probably take care of that. Again, I just think that this is something we need to look at and make sure that we're doing right by our employees and retaining those people certainly morale is important, and certainly doing the right thing is important. That's something that I wanted us to look at, and I think we need to study the payroll calendar and look at it more. We have not, so I just feel like that's something that we owe our employees.
I have a
Oh,
question.
go ahead.
At 10.5 months, they're making 89,000.
The middle
Is that
school?
right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So then when we move them to 11 months, how much are they gonna be making?
89,000.
So they're gonna work a half a month more and for the same salary?
That's right.
I wouldn't wanna do that.
But they're all doing it, and again, it's because they were being overpaid before. That's the point I'm trying to say, they were being overpaid before. So if these are the options that I see at this point. And again, I'm a little taken back that we're here, because we
Can I say
had the
something before you
last-
continue?
yeah.
Can I say something before you continue?
Yeah.
I think that at the point where we are in the budget, and the point we are where we're getting ready to start the year, it seems like we need to press forward with the budget that's been voted on and approved by us and the town. And if we want to look into this, I think it's worth, if that's what we want to do, is to look into this in this coming year, but to do it at the 11th hour seems like a massive undertaking that will cause quite the upheaval of things here when we're trying to get the school year started again. That's what it seems like to me.
Well, talking about budget, that's a really good point. What would the impact to our budget be? I mean, this was a tight budget year. I know, what are you gonna who are you gonna take away from to make this happen, right?
To make
Like,
what happen?
to
No,
make-
we're not,
if
we're
we
not gonna
increase-
change the budget. My recommendation is that, my thing is, I think we stay at 10.5 months. Right now, you're right, I mean, it's late hours, so let's keep them on 10.5, what they are now. That would be being just for them, because they know they're gonna be making the same salary anyway, so keep them at the 10.5. Let's look at it, let's study it, and let's make it right for them next year. If the principals wanna put them on 11 months, I certainly agree with that. As a former principal, I would want my assistant principals on 11, but I wanna pay them for the time they work. So that's my thing. And as I said, I just think it's the right thing for us to do at this point, because keep them at 10.5. If this policy fails, then they would stay at 10.5, making the 89.
But I
There would
don't
be no
understand-
change on the budget
It
at all.
doesn't make sense, though, for the assistant, I'm just gonna take this as an example. So the, elementary, assistant principals, under that label, make $4.73, the assistant principals make $4.73 more than the principal per day. I mean, that's crazy.
We've always, we've just never been looking at assistant principals or principals. I've never in my career did I look at myself that way. I was always a salaried employee, and I'm gonna tell you, just like our people do, they work a lot of hours past those times. They don't just work 10.5 months or 11 months. Some of these people come in when some work needs to be done. I know they just come in and do the work that they want to do for our system. So I just think that we have to consider that too.
I mean, I'll come back to the same point, have our assistant principals spoken to anyone about this being unhappy?
No.
I mean, any board members that know of assistant principals, and I don't see honestly how you could keep this the same now, especially now that the information's out there, and the principals be happy. So I agree, if you do this, then the principals have a very good case to come back and say, well, my assistant principal's making more money than me, and I'm working, way more.
Then as board members, since we fix salary schedules, are part of our
With the budget.
is that we fix the salaries, then it's upon us to make sure that this is done in the right way, and we look at it and we study it and make sure that we're doing what is just and right for our employees.
But then the hit to the budget, if you raise the principals,
I'm not saying that.
75% of our budgets is personnel salary. So.
Right.
I mean, where does that money come from?
Because people are important, and,
Well, I
but as
agree.
you know, our students are first. You know that. Our students are first. Our employees are second.
If I may, I think that I believe in looking through that it's upon my authority as the superintendent to determine the schedules in which employees work. The board approves the budget to pay for those salaries and the policies. And so just like the board doesn't come and tell me, educational assistants, we want them working this many days, not this many days. You approve the salary and then I, in turn do that. I don't know that the board has the authority to put the schedule together. I believe that's my determination.
I would agree with you, Superintendent.
Well, we can ask
I
council.
don't think I said, well, if I did say schedules, I misspoke, but I know we do fix salaries, and we make written contracts supposedly with teachers. Now, we haven't really been involved in that, but, at this point in time, here's my recommendation. I just think that we need to, keep the policy as is. So I will vote no for policy 5.310, vacation and holidays.
I have a question. Why are we just now doing this at
don't
the
know.
last moment?
I don't know.
Agreed.
Well, why had this come in April? That's the other thing. We saw the handwriting on the wall. Why are we just now doing it?
Yeah, you have to ask Ms. Williams.
Well, I brought this up at my individual budget conference, and I brought it up at the last meeting agenda about the 10.5 months. Now, not about this policy. This policy I did not see until till I saw the agenda. So I did not see this policy until then to this. But I did bring it up twice that I was very concerned about our assistant principals being put on an 11th month contract and not being paid more than the 10.5.
Well, I guess that's my hang-up, that they've been on 10.5, and now we want to move to 11. It would seem to me logically on a contract that if I'm working more, that the salary should inch up a little bit. That seems to be a fair thing to do. That's the only hang-up I have here, that we're asking them to work another 2 weeks or 3, at the same salary. That doesn't seem like a fair gesture for us to the assistant principal.
I would have said that in the beginning as well. Conversation that I'd had around this in the beginning, I would have thought the same thing until I got a fuller picture of actually what the work schedule and work times were. I would have said, why work more if for less pay or not any more pay? But seeing the schedule and how it compares to our principals, this makes a lot more sense to me now than it did just on the surface of we're asking them to work more.
Well, I think you widen the divide. If you do, as Mr. Noir said, increase their pay, then they really make more than the principals. I mean, they're already making more, but they'll really make more then. I don't see how you can get away with not raising the principals at the same time, and then we're talking really what's the impact to the budget. That's my only point.
And then I do want to say, as we've been looking through this, Ms. Williams came to me yesterday, I started looking to see, because I want to make sure that the authority stays where it stays. And so a couple of things, I went back and looked through TCA and looked at my contract, and what the board has contracted with me to do is the following. She is the chief executive officer of the board and shall direct and assign teachers and other employees of the schools under her supervision, shall organize, reorganize, and arrange the administrative and supervisory staff, including instruction and business affairs, as best serves the board. The board agrees that no policy of the board shall diminish the superintendent's legitimate power or authority. And so that's why I think that this is within my authority to determine if they work 10.5 or 11 months. Certainly it's the board's authority to determine what that salary, what the budget looks like, and that's what you've already approved. And that's what the town's already approved.
And so it's your job, or Mr. Mayo's job, to go to these assistant principals and say, this is what we're offering you, right?
Right.
Just like we would any
Well,
other
you
employee.
Right, and if you don't wanna
Which
take
is
it,
what
you
we've
don't
done,
have to
right.
take it.
Which is what we've done already, in essence, correct?
Yeah. So I say that to say my interpretation, and I don't know, or Ms. Speakman may want to jump in here, that if the board doesn't pass this policy, it does not preclude me from having the employees work 11 months. I just determine what those days are, and they don't accrue vacation days.
Well, I think kind of parsed out in a different way is that what's before the board right now is only the policy. The issue of whether or not somebody's a 10-month or 11-month or 49-month employee, that's not the question that's before the board right now, just only this policy is. So if the board were to want to make a decision that was contrary to the superintendent's recommendation as to the schedule, that would have to do with a different item, which would be a budget, so that the board could make an amendment to the budget to make that determination. But the only thing that's before you on your agenda tonight is a
Correct.
vacation policy. So I think when we're talking about these things, we can't conflate them, or else we're gonna end up
Right.
voting on something that's
Right.
not before you.
Right.
So I think one step at a time, do
This
this
policy,
and,
exactly.
right.
So, the budget has been approved, it was
Yes.
voted on by this board
Yes.
unanimously as this says.
Yes, sir.
And in order to change that, we would have to bring it back to the board in August, because we don't meet.
Yeah, yes, sir. A
So-
budget amendment.
Yeah, so a
just like
budget
you-
amendment, then we have to go to the town the following, and they would have to approve us to do any of the salary schedule stuff.
Assuming that you didn't have enough money in the budget, and I wouldn't know that, because I don't know how much money that is.
But what we're talking about at this point in time is this policy,
Yes, ma'am.
vacation and holidays.
Yes, ma'am.
And what we're talking about, if, as I've already told you, I'm voting no for this policy, then they would be 10.5 months employees.
No,
No, ma'am. What would happen if this is voted down is just that those employees who have already been approved by the board to be 11-month employees would just not get vacation. And the superintendent would just embed that in the calendar. So that.
Well, I
that's all
still
that's
say
needed.
that we're not treating our employees right if we keep them on the 10.5 and they have the same salary, then to me, and then looking at it for this year, that would be the right thing to do. To keep them on 10.5 as they are, and then let's look at this and study this, instead of trying to put them on 11th months and trying to make sure, then they're gonna have to work more days and still not being paid. So, I mean, as I said, I'm gonna vote no on this policy.
Well, so you bring up a good point about studying it, and so I don't know anybody in this administration that ever makes just random decisions, so how long did you guys all look at this before it was presented?
12 months, 12 to 13 months.
But no board member was involved in that study, so I think it's important that we be involved in that. So I think that's where maybe part of the problem is, that we did not have any board members studying with.
Well, if I may, I think that what my job is and my staff's job is to bring before the board, statutorily, it's my job to bring recommendations of a budget before the board. And that's what we did. We brought this recommendation before the board. And the board looked at it at the work session and passed it. And so that's how that process works. We don't, and again, it's, when you looking at the other districts that are 11 months, our folks are still more than not making more money than them. Those that are working 11 months. And so I do take great offense to the statement that we're not treating our employees fairly. I have never been accused of that, never will be accused of that, and no employee has ever came to me with that thought that they are being mistreated.
And-
They are being, in my mind and in my experience, having held that job for several years, and what the 11-month, and looking at the historical context of that, and my job is to make sure that we continue to make good business decisions that is looking out for the district's interest as well as our employees' interest, and then making sure that the work and responsibilities in which they do matches with what their pay is. I do understand when you start thinking about, well, this is what they made and they're working more and still making the same pay. Yes, that is true, but you have to go back and look at all the other information and say, you know what? They were being overpaid. And they were being overpaid. And when you look at how that equates to what principals are making. And so that's how we came to that conclusion. Then we put that together, we brought it before the board, discussed it at the work session. No, this discussion didn't happen then. This discussion should have happened then. Or it should have happened in May before the budget was passed. Or brought it back before I took it to the town to be approved. So now all those things have happened. Our employees are all on board and working toward that, have already started making that contract. And then 6 days before July 1, which is when the next fiscal year ends, we're here. It puts us, the employees, and the district in a big quandary. And it's not right to bring this at the last minute. And so I'll end with that.
So again, to clarify, all of the people that are affected by this have come back to their jobs again
Yes.
this year? Okay.
Yes.
Plus, when you're told about this, but did they ask questions? Were they ready? I've asked the superintendent to meet with the assistant principals. Now, I know that didn't happen. I think it would have been a good thing to do, but that's gonna be my last thing to say too.
I will say that when you look at this, on the middle, step 3, for our middle, they're making 89. Bartlett's 87. Collierville is 85. Germantown on step 3 is 83. And Lakeland's 83 and Millington's 79. They are making more. I see that they're making more. But my only problem is that we probably didn't let them know, did we, that we were gonna
Yes.
do this? Do you
Yes.
think they really understood?
Oh, yes, yes.
they're-
They've known since March. And I have seen them and talked to them. If you have any questions, ask them in principals meetings. Has the assistant principals come and talked to you all? Have they come? All the principals said that they have not talked to them about it, that they just worked out the schedule. I asked, is there any concern? That's the feedback that I've gotten. I'm open, my doors are open at any time for people to meet with me.
Only thing, do you think they would tell you, hey?
They tell me every other thing.
I mean, I don't know if I would go into the superintendent and say, hey, I'm not satisfied with this.
Well, I'll ask the
But
same
are
question
we
I asked earlier. Has anyone
ready
in
to
this
vote?
room heard from any of our assistant principals and said, we're not happy with this? Anybody?
I'm just not gonna answer that question.
You told me that they hadn't.
I think I said earlier that, through other districts.
Right, right.
I'm just not concerned with other districts, to be honest, but that's.
No,
me.
no. Okay, that's fine.
All right, well, I'll call for the question.
All right, let's do a roll call vote.
Mr. Benjamin?
Hang on, before we vote, let me make sure I know exactly what I'm voting for.
The motion was to approve the
Approve.
policy.
Motion is to approve the policy, okay.
Excuse me, Dr. Biatz. The motion is to approve, so you would, if you are going to approve, you'd say yes. If you don't, you'd say no.
Okay,
I have another question before we vote.
Let's go ahead and vote. I think we've already called for the
Okay,
question.
all right,
Mr. Benjamin?
yes.
Ms. Fletcher?
no.
Ms. Williams?
No.
I'm a yes.
No.
Okay, the noes have it, the motion's lost. We will move on to the next item, which is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, the motion it's been moved by Mr. Benjamin and seconded by Ms. Fletcher. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, the meeting is adjourned.